Hello, hello, artists. Welcome, welcome. We're back here for Unfold with Kellee Wynne, your favorite podcast host, right? I've really appreciated all of the fantastic feedback I've had lately. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I've had stories of people who have really taken the motto of live life by design and not by default to heart. It means a lot to me when I hear from you. And so I just wanted to start this podcast by saying I wouldn't be here without my podcast listeners. And that's you. The fact that you keep showing up for me week after week really means the world to me. That means I can just keep showing up here for you, providing hopefully inspiration and ideas behind the artist's lifestyle, what it takes to build a business, what it takes to create artwork from your heart and soul, and honestly, how we just navigate this world in general as artists, as creative beings, trying to find our best way forward in order to, like I said, live a life by design and not by default. I really mean this when I say this and I come to you with this message. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that's been happening all month long here, May of 2022, and that's the Virtual Art Summit. And I know I've been talking about it a lot, and we've had guests on the podcast. Pretty much my entire Instagram feed is filled with all of this information, but I wanted to tell you the history of it, how it came about, and then introduce the other artists that are in the Virtual Art Summit this year by sharing a clip from their video on how they found their voice. But let's backtrack just a little bit to 2020 when the whole world shut down. As we all know, so fresh in our memories, it just seems like we're still stuck in a loop sometimes as we're just finally crawling out of that pit of a global pandemic. But what happened was both tragic and beautiful. I look back at that time in 2020 as an emotionally challenging time for us as a society, and yet at moments there was such beauty and connection that I can't deny there was something that changed all of us to some degree or another, some for the good and some for the not so good. But I will say in my life, I felt closer and more connected to my community, to my family, and really started looking more inward towards myself. My best plans, I have to be honest with you, my best plans come on spontaneous moments where, I just open up to whatever may be and allow it to download and bring it forth. And in this moment, I knew I needed to bring together artists who had something to share in their style and their voice and who would be willing to create a tutorial. Because I had a platform already and a membership and courses, I had experience with creating and collaborating, and I had a fairly large enough following on Instagram that I knew I could get the message out that there was something that could keep us busy and keep us connected and creative through a really hard time. I'm still very grateful to the artists who said yes that first year because I didn't give them a lot of time. I said, I want a turnaround of less than a month. Can you provide anything to me to share in a couple weeks' time? I'll even help you edit your videos. Like, I didn't pick artists based on, following or, their experience as teachers. I picked them based off of their generosity, their talent, and just their willingness to share. And so still to this day, I'm just very grateful that I had 15 artists show up and say yes. And in 1 month's time, we turned around with lessons that were all about what brings us joy at this moment, because that's what the world needed, was joy, right? We offered this first Virtual Art Summit just as a pay what you can. I can't say that everything I did was completely altruistic in the sense that I know that when collaborations happen and we create larger events like this, it fills up my email list. It helps me shine as a leader in the industry, which is important to me because I really want to make sure that that's established, that people know that they can come to me, trust me, rely on me to create good content. So even though I wasn't doing it for the financial gain, the reason that I was pulling it together was twofold. One, for the community to give them an opportunity to learn at a high level with talented artists and really dive into their creativity, keep them busy through a hard time. Making art, those who had never made art were welcome to come in and start learning. And I had so many people who had never made art before or hadn't made it since childhood. And then the other reason was to be able to build my business. I really feel like summits in a lot of ways are a great way for leaders in the art industry to continue to lead and build their business and also help shine the light on other artists. So this is one of my favorite things to do. When I create the summits, I have a chance to really highlight other people in the industry. I love to be able to see their success, see their businesses grow, shine a light on different points of view. And to me, that's just really a beautiful outcome of creating summits. So 2020 was pay what you can. And it was about 30 days access at the time as well, but I didn't have a keep forever price. In fact, I think I had a membership at the time. So it was like, if you want to keep it, join the membership. However, as many of you may know, my storyline, by the end of 2020, I was done. I was so burnt out and I needed a break. So when I shut down the membership, I decided I needed a new format for the summit. 2020 was amazing. I couldn't believe we had thousands of people come and partake of something that I had put together in less than a month. So the next year comes around, 2021, I'm like, I really love the collaboration. I may not have the membership anymore, where in my membership prior to that, I had guest artists come in and we had a lot of different things going on. It's another story for why the membership didn't work, but for now I can just tell you that I'm grateful that I made the decision that I made to shut the membership down, because it opened me up to other possibilities, new ideas and ways that I can like really level up in my business and the way that I serve. So come forward to 2021 and I thought, well, we can keep this pay what you can offer. This is a really nice way that anyone at any financial level, as long as they have internet, would be able to access premium lessons. And when I say premium, I'm telling you, the artists bring it. These guest artists really bring premium content, lessons, information, not just how to, but really high thought in the way they express themselves and the way that they're able to teach. And I'm so grateful for that, that they can really like show up authentically and share of themselves. In 2021, our theme was color, mostly because I had a book that was published in 2021 all about color. And I do love color. You know, I have my own color theory. My modern color theory system is really been a foundation to my teaching. So we dove into color in 2021 with, again, 15 artists plus myself. So 16 thorough lessons, including PDFs and interviews and all that kind of fun stuff. And it was like a huge success, more than my wildest dreams, because 2021 was the first year that I did pay what you can, which meant you could have 30 days access, no problem, even if it's zero or a small donation, or you could keep it for $95, which, let me tell you right now, the content that I provide, that the artists that I collaborate with that provide really amazing lessons are, you know, and that's like over 8 hours worth of content that you get for $95, which is something that would normally sell between, you know, $300 and $500. So it's still $95 is accessible to get the kind of high quality education that you want as an artist as you're growing. And even for those who have been artists for a really long time, I know that they come into the summits and they're learning again and opening up their mind to new possibilities. Even for me, I take all the lessons, I watch everything, I learn from it, I incorporate it into my work, test it out, test the ideas, and come back with a new perspective. And I really feel like, you know, this education is some of the best you're going to find in the industry when we bring people together. This year, I decided that I really wanted to talk a lot about one of the number one challenges most artists say that they have, which is finding your voice. And we've talked about that a lot on the podcast, but the reason why I felt like finding your voice would be a really good subject is because we have a way of being able to create more authentically for ourselves when we are tapping into our intuition, our voice, our style, paying attention to ourselves. And really, that will take you along that journey to being able to create artwork that lasts for yourself. That's not a copy, that's not a derivative, that you really can learn from the artist and then evolve from there and discover what makes you sing, what makes you tick. Why are you here as an artist in the first place? Where do you want to go and what do you want to say? Oh my goodness, this year, 2022, it's like master classes. I'm like blown away by the advice and the heart and soul that the artists have brought. And just on a side note, you've got till the end of May to sign up for the summit, whether it's pay what you can for 30 days access or it's keep forever price. So you should go to virtualartsummit.com/go. If it is past May 31st when you're listening to this, don't worry, still go to that link and put your name on the list so that you do not miss it next year or any opportunities to join in summits that come up over the course of the next year. I might be hatching some other ideas along the way, and I want to make sure you're always in the loop. So virtualartsummit.com/go, whether it's now to purchase it, or I will refresh that link and lead you to a landing page where you can just at least leave your email so that you are on the list to make sure you don't miss it next year. You don't ever want to miss the summit. I promise you. I have artists coming back year in and year out. Just, I may be the third year, but I have visions for this summit to go on for years into the future. And I know you're going to want to have a chance to really absorb this amazing experience. All right. Now I want to kind of move on just a little bit and talk about the artists that are here this year. And what's really fun is I've extracted a few words of wisdom from each of them from the summit. So that's the fun thing about editing. We can pull out a few little bits and juicy tasters. And this isn't the how-to part. This isn't the demonstration on the art. This is their advice on finding their voice or the experience or transformation that they had, that aha moment that really pushed them to that level to be able to make artwork in their own style. And I just pulled out a couple of minutes from each of them, and I'm going to introduce each of them as we go. And you're going to be able to really feel the energy of what this summit is about. And hopefully that'll whet your appetite to come in and join us before it's too late. I know you're going to love this summit. And again, listening to this in hindsight, thank you for everyone who's still listening to my podcast episodes weeks and months after they've come out. There's still always something for you, an opportunity for you to connect and to enjoy the amazing collaborations that I pulled together. So without further ado, I am going to introduce to you 15 artists, and then I'll wrap up with a few words of advice from me and what I feel like where my voice has come from. Okay? I'm just going to go alphabetically down the list of all the artists that are in. So this isn't a list of by importance. We just try to keep it fair and simple. So we're going to start with Ardith Goodwin, who is an abstract artist from Alabama. She's got an amazing story of how she was a school teacher. She had some health issues and had to go on disability, but that was the moment where she found art, and that transformed her life. And now she is a force to be reckoned with in the art industry as a teacher, a mentor, a coach, and she regularly creates beautiful bodies of work that she sells in galleries. I'd like for you to hear in her own words, Ardith Goodwin.
I knew when I wanted to make the decision to become a full-time painter that I would need a style because the industry required that. I wanted to be in galleries. I wanted to be represented by galleries. And I knew enough on the business end to realize that's something that would be required, knowing how to paint consistently over a body of work or multiple pieces. When viewers look at my work, that's an Ardith Goodwin. Well, I didn't know how to figure that out. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have an academic program to lean on, but I did have an absolute desire to figure it out. So I gave myself an entire year. I committed a year to study. And I dove in studying what other artists were doing professionally that had a strong style, what gave them their style. And I began to understand that there were three main components to style: the unique idea that artists use, the unique colors that they use consistently, but more importantly, brushstrokes, how they physically create their paintings. That's what style, when we see an artist's work, it's all connected to that. And if you can figure out what your take on, your unique take on brushstroke is, it holds a lot of keys for style. In this workshop, I'm going to be sharing with you one of those visual elements that I defined for my own style that made all the difference in the world and why it's relevant to me. So I am thrilled that you're going to be pulling up a chair. Style is something that evolves over time. The more we force it, the more challenging it can become, but there are some tips and strategies that you can learn so that when you start thinking you want to paint with your version of beautifully different and interesting, there's easier ways of going about it than trying to reinvent the wheel. And I'm going to show you how I approach that in my own professional practice. It made a tremendous difference for me professionally, and I stand here today a really successful painter and own my corporation, and I do this full time, and my body has healed in huge ways because I move through the world creatively now. So it's not simply about learning how to paint. It's about learning how to tap into these creative, beautiful gifts that we've been given, to tap into our curiosities and fascinations as human beings, and to take all of that information and apply it through pigment and paint to what do you want to say to your viewer that's important to you. And we do that in color, idea, and how we manipulate brushstroke. And I'm going to be showing you a couple of tips that I've learned that made all the difference in the world.
Next, we have Kat Rains. Kat and I have been working together as I have been mentoring her in her journey to release her first art course, and I am so thrilled for her. She is such a joyful and soulful woman and a good friend now as well. And this was her first full-length video that she made for the Virtual Art Summit, and it's amazing. And her story's amazing too, because she bounced back and forth from corporate world to art world to corporate world again, and finally coming back to the art world, and her love of collage and her way of creating very joyfully and thoughtfully. And I think that you're really going to love what she has to say about how she found her joy of collage.
July 2020 was my turning point. I was about to go on a vacation, and I wanted to create art just for the joy of it, just for fun. Imagine that. I desperately needed a vacation from the pressure of creating sellable art, especially since the art I had been creating wasn't selling. So I packed up a traveling art studio with collage papers, matte medium, paints, brushes, and I set up 3 simple guidelines to follow while on vacation. Create only 1 small collage a day. 2, create them fast, in less than an hour. I actually had a timer with me to keep me honest, because after all, I was at the beach and I didn't want to spend all of my time in a hotel room. And 3, most importantly, I wanted to be in joy the entire time I was creating, which for me meant being totally present and without thought as I created. If thoughts crept in, which of course they did, I would stop creating over and over again, look at the ocean, drop my thoughts that had been distracting me, and then continue creating with an empty, present mind, completely focused on the papers I was moving around in front of me. After I created the first collage on the first day this way, I was totally hooked, and my heart was on fire, the way it used to be when I first discovered my love of collage years ago. I posted each of these vacation collages to Instagram as I finished them, thinking no one was going to like my new abstract style, but much to my surprise, someone actually reached out and wanted to buy one. So when the vacation was over, I continued creating this type of collage from a place of joy until I had a 30-piece collection. When I launched them for sale, they sold out in less than 48 hours. So learning to create from a place of joy and connection within myself and a higher power turned out to be the missing link to finding my voice. Now I know what I love to create, and most importantly, how I want to feel as I do it. So although I've had two distinctive voices during my 2 times as a full-time artist, the why and purpose behind my art has always been the same. From the very beginning, when I discovered my life's passion for collage at age 33, it's always been about using art to connect to a wiser part of me, my higher self, the universe, and to support others that viewed or purchased my art to connect to a deeper part of themselves.
Next, we have Jane Monteith. You probably know her very well for all of her gorgeous layers of mixed media, handmade papers, geometric shapes, and then, of course, how she finishes off her work is with a beautiful resin finish. Her story is going from working on murals and large design, and then coming into the discovery of alcohol inks, which propelled her forward in her mixed media journey. She teaches online. She has some master courses that you can learn from her. And also we did an interview with Jane earlier in this year. So if you wanted to pop back to a previous episode where she was interviewed, I think you'd enjoy the discussion very much.
Be taking you through my process or behind the scenes of how I create some of my collage style work. Now, I am a mixed media artist, more of a contemporary abstract style artist, and I love using multiple materials and mediums to create one-of-a-kind, unique paper textures that I can then incorporate and layer into my collage work, which I then finish with resin. Now, I've had a love affair with resin for a number of years, so I'm going to be taking you through what I use and share with you some tips and tricks for coming up with a flawless resin finish. But I'm going to be sharing with you essentially my process for what I'm most known for or recognized on Instagram when I first started sharing my collage work several years ago, and that is my mod minis. Now, this is a term that I coined for my little series of collage work on wood panel using alcohol inks. Mod minis are short for modern miniatures, and it's just a ton of fun to create these little pieces of art. They look like jewels, and I came across alcohol inks randomly one day in my local art shop and instantly fell in love with them because they're so vibrant and colorful, and you can do so many things with them.
Next up, we have Julie Hamilton. Come watch her play with paper, paint, scissors, collage. If you're into mixed media, she's definitely a joy to watch and learn from. She's well known for her art courses, and she's also been licensed for illustrations. I just really have been drawn to her work for years now, and so it's been really a joy to be able to bring her into the Virtual Art Summit this year.
When asked about my style, it always makes me a little bit nervous because I am an illustrator. I'm a surface pattern designer. I do a lot of abstract artwork and collage cutouts, so I'm a little all over the place, and I've been a little all over the place for a long time now. So I hate to just categorize myself under a certain style. But what I found really interesting is that when I sat down and took a look at all of my past work, and I went back about 5 years, there is a common thread that goes in between all of it. And that's one of the things I want to discuss today when looking at your own artwork. A few other key moments for me in discovering my personal style have been what I call my morning pages, and I have large sketchbook paper that I play with. I experiment, I put all the marks and all the colors, lots of layers, and I just have fun, and it's my permission to play every day. And from those morning pages, I take everything that inspires me. It can be anything from a mark, a shape, a line, maybe the way a certain color is mixed from layering or just transitions, edges, anything. And I cut those out with my viewfinder and I put them into what's called my creative journal. And my creative journal, not a messy sketchbook, it's actually, I quite love it. It's just a place where I hold everything that's near and dear to me. And they're little learning moments and things that I would like to recreate again. It's my own little spot that I go for inspiration. Lastly, I would like to talk about working in series. I absolutely love projects, and one of my favorite is the 100-Day Project. I have been involved with it now for 6 years, and I'd like to say I have completed every one. They are a fantastic opportunity to focus in on one thing and for the generation of so many ideas. So it gives you an opportunity to really go a lot deeper into one part of your practice versus going wider.
Julie Valentine is got a dual job of full-time working and part-time art journaling, art making, and teaching on the side. And we're really quite honored to have her make some time for us here at the Virtual Art Summit and share her point of view and her expertise in bringing together all the different elements and telling a story through art journaling. I think you're really going to enjoy this lesson.
Our journaling practice is really my meditation, my yoga, my time to relax, my time to not judge myself, my time to think about what's important to me and actually focus on what makes me happy. And out of that, I find myself making different choices in life. I start choosing things to do to spend my time outside of the journaling practice that makes me happy. And it becomes a lot easier to make those choices and to get creative even about making that happen. Life is busy. I've got a lot of things happening. I work a full-time job, I'm married, I got all these things going on. And sometimes finding time for yourself is a challenge. And one of my philosophies in art journaling is to keep it really simple and to work in small sections, small spurts of time. I rarely get an hour or 2 hours to sit down to create. That's like so rare to do. So how about creating in 30 minutes? How about creating, in 10 minutes, 5 minutes? You could doodle, while you're on the phone somewhere, waiting on a customer service call or something like that, So I keep things handy and available so that I can create at any time. And I create all the things that lead up to the journaling process. Like I might create painted pages, or I will, stamp onto tissue paper. All those different pieces will come together until I have this big stash of papers and beautiful things to kind of pick through. And then I might find some things I'm interested in and playing with and that kind of attract me. And I pay attention to that too, like how that feels. And I'll pull things that I'm really attracted to and interested in. And I'll start there, creating a journal page. And journal pages can take, a couple of minutes to a few hours. I also feel like the journaling process is iterative. So you may start out with something, or I start off with something, and then I think I love it. And then I get to the end and I decide this isn't really, I'm not feeling this. Like I feel like this needs to like shift some kind of way. So I might sit with it for a day or two. And then, I don't know, so all of a sudden I get this spark of energy late in the evening, because that's usually my time to create, that I think I want to come back to it. And I'll put on my headset, I'll listen to some music, I'll listen to a podcast, and I just start doodling and adding things. And suddenly this page that I wasn't too happy about turns into a page that I really love. So I really don't hold myself to create a journal page all in one sitting, even though that's how I'm going to present it today. It does happen over time. And I just feel like part of it is just having your supplies ready, recognizing that you can do a piece at a time. Don't worry about having big chunks of time to create. Little bits of time can be just as valuable. And enjoy the journey, enjoy the process.
Karen Stamper is a lifelong teaching artist who has masterfully managed to incorporate all those elements that we love in mixed media, from collage to paint, and then embedding and infusing all those layers with slightly known imagery. Specifically, she's known for her boatyard works, but she's also worked on different cities as she's traveled around the world. And she is also one to have started the big trend of concertina art journaling, which is something that I've been following for ages, and made a few art journals myself out of this style, which is kind of an accordion style art journal that you can paint on both sides and let the story continue page after page after page. I think you're really going to love her point of view as she brings you into her world with collage.
In my studio, I have boxes and boxes of collage papers, from tatty bits of wrapping paper to beautiful bits of hand-painted papers. And I use those as well as acrylic paints, and I work on wooden panels now and sometimes on canvas. And really it's been a lifetime of collecting and drawing and traveling that bring me to where I am. More and more you realize your roots, and I grew up on a east coast town in Yorkshire with very industrial docks and ships and harbours, and that now is really coming out in my work. And quite often, well, a lot of the time, I'm working from the harbours that I can visit near me, and the boat shapes and the docks and the industrial urban grime of the boatyard. So my boats are never sitting in the water, they're usually out on the hard where they're being fixed. I did work for a few years with sailing holidays in Turkey, and we spent a lot of time in the boatyards getting the boats ready before and after the season, so I know where all this has come from. But that's my love of the distressed surfaces and peeling paint, worn surfaces coming through more and more. And I realise more and more it's about the materials rather than the subject. So, you know, I'm loving the lines and the edges and the different surfaces more than the actual subject of a painting.
I am pleased to introduce Kellee Wynne. I had a lovely discussion with her the other day on Instagram and really kind of got into the heart of why and how she creates. She definitely taps into her spiritual energy. She's been guiding creatives for years now in her own online courses and community, bringing in the elements of art along with things like tarot and spirituality and yoga and this whole encompassing art experience. She was a teacher in the school system and realized that there came a point where she was no longer showing up with the kind of creativity and empathy that she really wanted to. So she transferred all that energy into her amazing online courses and community, and also her in-person retreats that are really special, deep dives into the soul and to the art making.
I think maybe this will be the first time that I have allowed myself to bring together two things that I really love. I collect fountain pens and I collect card decks. I also make card decks. Some of you might have my mixed media inspiration deck. And so this is the first time I've done this. And so I'm really excited that I got to do it here with this community. I hope that the project I've created will be something that inspires you to create, to make something, to try over and over and over again. I really allowed myself to be expressive, to play spontaneously, to have a lot of fun, and to just see what came at the end after all of that playing. And so what I find when I am creating is that I have to start intuitively. I have to listen in to what my soul is wanting me to do, to what my muse is guiding me towards. And then I have to give myself permission to also be a little bit intentional when I get to a place where it feels like it's ready for that. I'm also a pretty practical creative. I like things to be functional. I like them to have a function at the end, to do something. And even if all they do is sit on a shelf or they bring me some additional joy, it is always about the process. Even if I am practically thinking, it is still always about the process for me.
I am so thrilled also to be introducing to you Lally Mill. We just had an interview with her here on the podcast, and you really should go back and listen to it. She's a dear friend of mine. As I introduced her before, I actually got to meet her in person. Her art journey took her to creating her first course, Layers of Light, which was a huge hit and a big inspiration to me in my art journey as I created online courses. And I love her design and her thoughtfulness in the way she creates and the courses that she creates, including her soulful abstracts. It really dives into how to make artwork in your own voice. I really think you're going to love her point of view.
As an artist, what has really allowed me to find my personal style, my own voice, and also allows me to keep evolving year after year is to find and follow my inner compass. And to me, it means that whatever I do, whatever I create, I always want to be very much aware of what feels good to me, what makes my heart flutter, what makes me excited, and being aware in any moment of what really calls to you and what you love and what really brings you joy and feels good. This is a sure way to me to really, really find your own unique voice. Finding this inner compass, to me, it really starts with playing and allowing yourself to experiment with plenty of things. And when you experiment and when you get playful, you're going to notice the things that feel really good to you and the things that you want to reuse again and again. And you're also going to become aware of the things that are not really yours, that just don't work. Even if you saw something and you felt it was maybe a good thing to try, and then when you try it, you don't like it, then just let it go. And the other thing that allows me to find this inner compass is really to observe, to just observe the way I react to things, but also observe the things that I'm attracted to, the colors, the textures, the materials, the images, the patterns, the themes, anything that really catches my eye intuitively, then I know this is something I can try and work with.
I am excited to introduce to you Lily Soul. Lily is out of California, where she has been working in her own studio on these beautiful goddess paintings. I know that she's been licensed by Jungalow, which is an amazing online home goods place. She's been creating these really playful women that really exude her personality and her joyfulness. I know that you're going to love her lesson in the Virtual Art Summit because it's going to push you into a whole new realm that maybe you hadn't even thought of on how to create abstract figurative goddess work.
Quite some time, and the more I paint, the more I feel like my work really does shine through with who I am. You can see some of my larger paintings behind me. I love bright colors, nature. I'm so inspired by all the plants and strong women. I love to paint goddess vibes. Here are some other block prints. So I always like to just adorn the ladies with flowers and jewelry and bright colors because it makes me feel good, and I feel like it really represents who I am and who I want to be. I've taken online classes, in-person classes, and I know a lot of the time when you're a beginning artist, you sort of mock other artists' styles so that you can just sort of learn the materials, and that's okay for learning, but to really bring your authentic voice through it can kind of take some time, but it also takes a lot of trust and listening to your intuition, being open to be honest about what you love. So we'll do some journaling questions. My art journal is like my happy place for discoveries. It's a place where I can really just let loose and be free. There's really no pressure here because I know that this journal is really for my own practice. It's not anything I'm gonna necessarily share or sell. So I would definitely encourage you to definitely keep a sketchbook or an art journal and to not hold back. For discovering my style, I think it's been a lot of play, there's no error in art. I think there's no mistakes either. So it's not like trial and error, but it's trial and discover, and just kind of see what happens when you add this color or this mark or this or that. Because, you know, you can always take something away, especially when you're working with acrylic paints. Watercolor can be a little harder to edit, but maybe that's just how it's supposed to be, you know? Nothing is ever perfect. Our skin, we get bumps and bruises, and so does our artwork.
And now I'd like to introduce to you again on the podcast, because we've interviewed her before, Manaz Razadeh. Manaz is born in France, in Normandy, an area of France that I really enjoy, but of Afghan parents from Kabul. And yet somehow she ended up in California learning English and on this wild journey from corporate America to full-time professional artist and mom of small children, and still making it happen. I really love the way that she creates, very bold, feminine and graphic and gritty and powerful all at the same time. I think you're really going to enjoy her journey.
I went to UCSD for 2 classes, and I thought that coming from, like, I had a previously a master and I've done everything, like I had gone to school and gotten a job, so I thought that I had to almost go through the same path. So I did try taking classes at UCSD, and I forgot, it was like a color theory class and another art class for composition. And the teachers were great, but it was too structured, it was too formal, it was not fun. I did learn, but I was not fully enjoying it, and there was some stress around it. So I went for, I think, a semester or 2, took a couple classes and stopped there because it wasn't I was learning theory, but it wasn't translating on the canvas into something that I loved or that I enjoyed doing. So I kept going with my community of artists. I kept Googling things, and the most important thing, I kept painting. I painted and painted and painted, and I still paint every day. And this is where I felt that I was finding myself, finding my voice on the canvas. And it was almost like a reverse process where I initially, I knew I wanted to do art, but I wasn't sure what it fully meant to me, and then how I was finding my voice through it. But by painting every day, that border or that big step was crossed. I was comfortable, like, throwing paints, writing on the canvas. I was comfortable, having multiple layers and putting papers, and I was learning all those techniques. And slowly through it, I'm still, I think you never fully find your voice, like, oh, this is it and there's nothing else. So I think now I'm in the comfortable phase where I'm comfortable exploring more things around what I want to express, and I'll go deeper into that. But it was like truly a practice, and I love the term art practice because it's truly like by doing it every day, by having a routine around it, by trying to get better at it, not really knowing, but by just practicing. You don't have to know where you're going, but by doing it, it really builds strength.
I'm really pleased to introduce to you Mary Beth Shaw. I've really enjoyed bonding with her and growing our friendship over the last few months, and so pleased that she could be in the Virtual Art Summit. You may know her as the Stencil Girl. Yes, she owns Stencil Girl products, but long before she started her own product line business, she's been a fine artist and a creator for decades now, and an amazing teacher. You can find her products online at stencilgirlproducts.com, and she licenses many different artists to create stencils for her company. And she has amazing, huge list of lessons you can learn from. But I think the best part about working with Mary Beth is just that she takes art to the next level, even when using tools like stencils or brayers. It's just really fascinating to watch, but it's even better to listen to her and her good advice on finding your style. And what's even better is Stencil Girl Products has been a sponsor for the entire summit, which means they've been donating products for our scholarship and for our prizes. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you, Mary. And thank you, Stencil Girl Products.
Back in the day, I used to do outdoor art fairs. And I cannot tell you how many times I was standing in my booth and somebody walked in and said, "You look like you walked out of one of your paintings." And then I turned around and I looked at the painting behind me, and then I looked down at my clothes and I went, "I do." And I never did it intentionally. But that's one clue. Look at your closet. How do you dress yourself? I'm a very eclectic dresser. Look at what I'm wearing today. This is a sweater, but it's kind of a patchworky looking thing, and it's got a lot of color, a lot of different colors in it. This arm is yellow, this arm is red and striped, so there's a lot going on here. My art, same way. Guess what else? My house, the way I decorate my house, same way. I have a very eclectic hodgepodge mishmash of things going around my home that wouldn't be for everyone, but it works for me. It's a lot of color, it's antiques, it's modern, it's funky, it's kitschy, it's retro, it's a little bit of everything, but that's who I am, and that's what I want to come out in my art. It took me a long time to get to that place, though. It wasn't like I just sat down and started saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to create this kitschy, retro, multi-layered, textured, colored, blah, blah, blah art." It isn't that easy, but that might be a place to start. Think about, how do you dress yourself? How do you decorate your home? What looks do you gravitate towards over and over again? There are clues there. In the beginning, when I was first starting on my art journey, I kept a notebook, a spiral notebook, and I would tear things out of magazines and glue them down in the notebook. And then I would make notes about every image that I saved. And these weren't necessarily images of other artwork. Some of them were images from decorator magazines. It might have just been a tile that I liked. Maybe I liked it for the color. Maybe I liked it for the line patterns. Maybe I liked it for the texture that was obvious. Or maybe I wasn't even sure, but I just knew I liked it, and I glued all those things down. Over time, that book started to become very valuable to me because it told a story of things I liked, and I could identify the common elements in those things, and I started to figure it out.
Matey Rose is next on our list. I think it's super cute that she always says it's Matey, like ahoy Matey. But she's really bubbly and sweet, and she's been in this industry for a long time. So if you haven't heard of her, are you living under a rock? I say that because I've had her book on my shelf for, I think it was published over a decade ago, and she's really been a force in this industry to help people paint intuitively from their heart in a very joyful way. And her work has evolved many times over the years, and I've loved watching that change and grow. Her art retreats that she shares with Faith Evans-Sills, these are really magical experiences for women, transformative. They hold those retreats in Costa Rica and Morocco. I know they fill up fast, so if you're interested in one of those transformative types of soul-fulfilling experiences, definitely go check that out as soon as possible, because whenever they open the doors, the spots go quickly. I know you're going to love seeing her point of view and from her studio in Berkeley, which she shares also with Lily Soul. I'm really grateful to her to take the time to support us in the Virtual Art Summit.
It's taken me a long time to discover my voice, and then now that I feel like it has landed after 20 years of making paintings, I feel like we have had it all along. It's innate, it's within us, and it's sort of like making a sculpture out of stone and chipping it away at it, and then underneath is the masterpiece, because we each have our distinct creative voices, and the process is uncovering that. And it's inevitable. It's a culmination of like all of the movies and books we love and the travels we've had and the memories of our family and that, flowered wallpaper that your grandparents had. All of these things are infused into our paintings and would have us choosing particular colors and combinations that other people would not gravitate towards, and so forth. I find a really easy place to look is looking in your closet. I tend to go for lots of colorful bohemian Mexican embroidered dresses and whatnot. So that's a sure way to see like what palettes you like. So for this exercise in particular, I am inspired by travel, and I think that would be a great place for all of you to look, whether or not you're inspired by the jungle or desert, or in my case, oceans. And I just went to beautiful Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and the turquoise and blue colors there have so much amazing variation, and the sand is just like this light peachy color. So I'm going to be using a lot of those colors, but feel free to, if you're going to paint along with me, to look on your camera roll. And of course, we haven't been traveling so much in the last couple of years, but you could also look on Pinterest at places that inspire you. Or maybe it's even your backyard, maybe you have flowers in your garden, but to gather up some colors as a starting point for yourself. So yeah, I think how I discovered my style was through a lot of trial and error, but what really helps me is to keep on leaning in and going towards what I love.
Next up, Megan Woodard Johnson. I'm going to tell you right now, I have so much in common with this lady. We both have been through that whole starting the art journey, stopping the art journey to do motherhood, moving back into the art journey again and figuring out how to make it all happen. I love it. I loved being able to connect with her. We also both have a big love of vintage papers and working collage elements into our artwork. It was such a fun experience to be able to connect with her and talk to her and have her provide a really excellent art lesson. I know that now Megan has been working on coaching and guiding and mentoring artists in their art journey.
Who I am and how I became an artist. It's the thing that I always wanted to do as a kid. I was much more interested in coloring, building things and creating things than I ever was interested in sports or dolls or things that kids would do, because all I was doing was making art and making worlds with my art. Luckily for me, my parents supporting this clear vocation by finding me art lessons and finding me private instructors when possible. And my teachers supported me and just kept funneling me into the direction of studying art in university, in college. In college, I did study art. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in graphic design, which I love to study as a art form. Have a huge amount of appreciation for it as an art form, but didn't go into as a field or a career, because I have discovered by the end of all of my studies that I am a 100% tactile maker, and creating art on the computer was never going to be a good fit for me, and it was definitely the trend that the industry was going in. So I was not interested in following graphic design as a career path. This means that I took about a 10-12 year break from making art, because I graduated in the 90s and my sole goal was to get out on my own and find a job that had a steady paycheck, health insurance, all that kind of stuff, which led me moving across the country and exploring sort of the corporate side of life for a number of years, then getting married and having children. And when my children were little, I funneled a ton of my creativity into their lives and our home, and that was very fulfilling until it wasn't enough. And I knew that I had to get back to making art just because I needed to make it, not because it fulfilled a purpose in our home decorating or our children's Halloween costumes. So I started making art 15 years ago as an adult, just completely driving it myself. I wasn't responding to classes or teachers or instructions. But I was pulling from all that I had learned in terms of how to use materials and explore ideas all through that great education. I would describe my current style by saying that I'm a non-representational abstract artist. So I'm not referencing landscape or using any identifiable imagery in my work. I am definitely a colorist. I let the color lead the composition and create the mood. I also lay it in very intuitively, especially in the beginning. But again, the color is king for me. And I use layers in a really intentional way. I layer up materials, different papers for collage layers, and then I layer up paint and marks in ways where the overlapping and intersecting is a very important part of how I create the composition. And I really love sort of a nice tension between organization and a little bit of chaos. My style definitely evolved over a really long period of time. I think that is actually the hallmark of style. So if you're new in developing your practice and your craft and your voice as an artist, one bit of advice is to let it take time. Let it take time. That doesn't mean don't ever show anybody what you're working on now, but let your style sort of reveal itself to you over a nice long period of time.
A real joy to work with. Natalie D'Adamio is new to teaching online, but she's a natural born teacher. And you're going to want to follow her because she has a lot of great reels and live videos and demonstrations on how she makes her art. But honestly, the reason I'm so compelled and drawn to her is she has a different approach that really puts her whole emotions into the way that she paints. And you can see that in the way she works. Very intuitively, expressively, very passionately, but also I love the fact that she's now infusing her spiritual growth into her artwork and knowing that you can't really separate the two. I really hope to have deeper conversations with Natalie in the future on the podcast because I think that this is relating a lot to my personal growth and one of the reasons why I'm drawn to her so much.
A little bit about my art journey. I returned to art making 4 years ago, and I've been on a fast track out of myself, moving more and more in to what's really been lighting me up. It takes a little bit to get comfortable with who we are as artists, as people, and we're always moving through things. We have up times, down times. It's all part of the process of really becoming and learning how to navigate. I was a locked up artist probably for decades, and then all of a sudden the cracks started to unlock, and now I'm living more fully into that expression. And I've noticed for myself, the art making has helped give me my physical voice back. That's something that's very unique and particular to my journey as an artist. It's not just about expressing myself in marks, it's also about expressing myself fully as a person too, which I really love the synergy of art making and mark making and the dynamics that bring into our lives. We really can have more full-fledged, happy, raw, personal, expressive lives. And that's really my interest as I am here right now in this virtual summit called Express Yourself. It's just perfect, really.
And last but not least, Nino Uniardi, which I have admired his artwork for a very long time. And when I realized that he actually teaches online, I was like, okay, we're going to bring him in and we want to see how he makes this whole food fusion work with his art. He has the funniest names for all of his artwork, putting together weird combinations, something like, ice cream and wasabi, you know, things that are not normally that go together. And the way he explains it is because he was bullied a lot as a child and he's seen this kind of carry on into adulthood, he sees that we are all different and things that wouldn't normally go together can come together and make something beautiful, which is his artwork, but also community and support and relationships. So he's really hoping for that bridge between differences to come together and find commonality. And that's kind of the message in his why of his work, and how he got there is just a lifelong time of experimenting with his artwork and seeing where it'll take him. I love how he creates layers in his artwork, both with line and with paint and juicy drips and splatters, and it's a lot of fun. Plus the colors for me speak very loudly to my soul. I think you're really going to enjoy his lesson and his point of view on how to find your voice.
To share with you my thoughts on how I find my voice. I found it and I lost it and tried to find it again and lost it again. It's a constant process for me to figure out what my work is about. So for me personally, finding my voice is about sharing myself to the world through my work. In general, it's, like that. So to me, I think finding my voice has to come from within. There's nobody can create the same thing, because it's all, if our work starts from within, all of our experiences growing up or currently, we all are different. We're all different people, different background and experiences. So I think when we draw our inspiration from those experiences, we can be as unique as we want.
My friends, I just want to let you know that every single one of these artists you can find in the show notes in the description. If you go to unfoldwithkelleewynne.com, you're going to find each and every one of these podcast episodes with show notes, sometimes images, links so that you can find the artists that we talk about or even the offers that we talk about along the way. And I really wanted to make sure that you knew that we had this extra layer that can take you deeper into the journey of the podcast Unfold with Kellee Wynne. And I just want to wrap up with a little bit of my own point of view with finding your voice, the lessons that I've learned through my experience and through experiencing the Virtual Arts Summit. First and foremost, it takes time. It takes practice. It takes showing up. And that is one thing that every single one of these artists has said, is just showing up for yourself over and over again. And eventually with time and with play and with practice, your voice will naturally come through. And then the other thing is that voice was always there. That's the second lesson that I've learned, and through my own experience. It's there. It's there in the clothes you wear. It's in the things that are your favorite things. It's in the way you decorate. It's the way you carry yourself. It's the things you dream about. It's the experiences you've had. It's the places you've lived and the people you've met. It's all a culmination of you. It's all within you. Your voice is just waiting to be uncovered. But you got to go back to step one, which is making a lot of art. And when you make a lot of art, it's naturally going to happen. Eventually, some things will fall to the wayside that weren't really meant for you at this time, and other things will rise to the top. The thing that's really exciting you the most, follow that. Move forward with that. That's the most important thing you can do for yourself, for your art, and really just to make work that's joyful. Thank you so much for once again joining me. Don't forget that I've been hosting this podcast also on YouTube with live video. Not the easiest thing to do, but definitely an exciting thing to do. I hope that you join us in the Virtual Arts Summit this year at virtualartsummit.com/go. And if you don't make it this year, make sure you're on the list so that you don't miss it in the future, because it's a really special event. Thank you so much. If you've loved this podcast, please share it with your friends. The more that we spread the word about Unfold with Kellee Wynne, the more we can get this message out there into the world that you too can make art and live life by design and not by default. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time on the podcast.